All right, today on the podcast we have Nick Bear. Nick, I'm super excited to have you. I gotta say, you're one of our most requested guests, probably for the podcast. So I don't know if it's been a long time coming, but I think for our listeners, they've really wanted to hear your story, how you kind of became a hybrid athlete, and maybe your perspective and viewpoints on training, running, and everything else.
Well, first off, I appreciate it. Second off, that's an honor to hear. So that's amazing to hear. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talk all things running and everything that I've learned over the years. I've had quite the journey to where I'm at right now in my running experience.
Yeah, I will say you've had an interesting journey, not just in your running experience, but I feel like overall, I know. I just want to get this out of the way, but you're from Pennsylvania, right?
I am, yes. Central.
Okay. Are you from Palmyra, PA?
I am, yes.
Dude, until the age of 5, I lived in Palmyra, went to elementary school at Pine Street Elementary, and grew up, when I was a kid, lived on North Railroad Street. So my earliest memories are of Palmyra.
That's wild. Yeah, I went to Forge Road Elementary.
Okay. Yeah.
And I grew up there my entire life. Great place to be from. But when I was in high school, I was like, I'm pushing south. I just want to get south.
I got
you. Joining the military was one of the ways that I pushed south. But small world.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I'll go back. My parents still live back there. So they have a Thanksgiving 5K in Palmyra every year, like the Sticks and Biscuits 5K. I did that this past year. So it was nice to get. Wait, did you really? There. Are you serious? That's crazy, dude. I didn't even see you. Wow. So you were there at the same time. That's wild. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is crazy. Well, maybe next year, if we're both back in town, we'll say hi to each other. Is your internet connection good?
Yeah, I keep losing you.
Okay, all right. Hopefully it'll catch up here in a second. Yeah. So anyway, so it's pretty cool, both from Central PA. So you grew up there, and then you went to college at IUP, which is Indiana University of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yep. I went to IUP, graduated high school in 2009, went out to IUP studying nutrition. I was on an Army ROTC scholarship. So I knew when I was going to get out of, or when I was going to graduate college, I knew I was going to go directly into the military for active duty service. That Army ROTC scholarship was and is such an amazing deal. I mean, they cover tuition, room and board, books. It truly set me up for success. It's actually how I got my loan to start my business as well when I was in college. But yeah, I went out to school in Indiana, Pennsylvania. And then after graduating from college, I got sent down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and then Fort Hood, Texas. Wow.
Yeah. And, so then you went to, I read your bio and everything on the website. You did Ranger school, and did you do another school as well? And were you then in the Rangers, or did you kind of do something else?
So after graduating college, I commissioned as a infantry officer, and then went to Fort Benning, Georgia. When I was at Georgia, I was there for about a year. Okay. I was in the infantry officer basic leader course, which is just your basic infantry officer course. Then I went to Ranger School. Ranger School was a 61-day tactical leadership evaluation course. Took me 145 days to graduate Ranger School because I failed 2 phases.
Oh, man.
that was a pivotal point in my life, a very emotionally and spiritually growing experience.
That's a good way to
development. And then after that, I went to airborne school, Bradley leader course. And then after all of those courses and schoolings for about a year, that's when I was then stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, where I was a infantry platoon leader. Now, the way that like the Rangers is set up, there are Ranger units, which is Ranger Regiment. And then there is Ranger Qualified. I was Ranger Qualified, meaning I went to the school. I graduated from the school. I could wear the tab on my shoulder with my uniform, but I was not in a Ranger Regiment unit. I was just in a conventional infantry unit, which was 1st Cavalry Division.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I feel like that's right around the time you started doing your YouTube content, right? So was that like 10-ish years ago?
Yeah, almost exactly. So 2014, it would have been around October of 2014 that I started creating YouTube content. And it was right when I got down to Texas. When I got to Texas, stationed at Fort Hood, my unit at the time was in Germany on a training rotation. So I had a few weeks or a few short months where my unit was still overseas. So I didn't have too much to do when I first got to Texas. And it was also at this pivotal point where the business, Bear Performance Nutrition, was not really growing or seeing any success. I had like $500 left to my name, and I thought, I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to go all in on YouTube. I'm going to create content. I'm going to document my life in hopes that it helps build the business. And I just went all in on creating content around everything I was doing: training, diet, nutrition, behind the scenes of the business, what it's like being in the Army. And every waking moment outside of being in the Army was spent filming and creating content.
And what were those? Yeah, I was going to say, I love that you mentioned that you had $500 left in your bank account and that it wasn't working out for you the way you thought it was. And that was this moment where you were like, made that shift. Because like a lot of people could just give up and be like, you know what? I gave it my shot, did my thing. But you found that maybe thing on sidestep or whatever that took you, probably really kind of was a game changer for you. I mean, that was the thing. And I love that some of those difficulties or challenges or places where you would think in one moment it's a failure can turn out to be, one of the most, I don't know, like blessed or like opportune times that you could imagine.
I think it was a really honest moment in my life where I realized at that point, it was 2 years after starting the business, I truly didn't go all in. And I remember starting the business and being told, hey, businesses typically take about 3 years to get off the ground. So don't expect to see much traction for those first 3 years. And I attached to that and I bought into that. And I believed that. Yeah. And that kind of gave me a crutch where I was like, well, year 1 didn't go the way I thought it would. That's okay. I got 2 more years. Year 2 didn't go the way I thought it would. That's okay. I got 1 more year. And when I got to Texas, I realized I'm in control of my destiny. Yeah. Once I hit that 3-year mark, something just doesn't change overnight and the business grows on its own. And I just realized if I wanted to actually build this thing, I had to go all in. And I was the only one who could make that change in that choice.
Yeah, I think that's something interesting you said there was that the crutch part about where you heard that in the back of your head that, it takes this long for businesses to get off the ground. You just don't expect much. That's even a common thing with YouTube or a lot of creator platforms. But yeah, I feel like if you give yourself an out, or you have, it doesn't even have to apply to a business getting off the ground. Sometimes people will just say, oh, I'm going to like do this on the side and kind of just like see how it goes. And it's like, I feel like that kind of like how pressure creates a diamond, where you have to almost be in that situation where you're like, I'm all in no matter what it takes. And that's what kind of creates the trajectory for success in a way.
Well, I see the same thing to make the direct parallel to running. Someone will go into a marathon prep, for example, and before they even start that prep, they limit their potential. It's like, well, I have all this stuff going on over these next couple of months. I'm going to give my best to this marathon prep, but I'm setting the realistic expectations that I might not hit this goal because I'm telling myself I have these things along the way that might get in the way.
Yeah.
When I ran CIM in December, I'll never forget this. We were on the bus because CIM is it's a point to point race.
Right.
So you have to get on this bus to get to the starting line. And I'm sitting on this bus, dialed in and focused, just ready to rip it on this race because I knew I put in a really big prep. I was prepared. I was confident. I tapered well. I was healthy. And on the bus, I could hear people chatting, talking about why they weren't going to perform that day.
Wow.
And it was like, this is going on in my personal life. This is going on in my business. I had to travel yesterday and these travel plans got messed up. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, you're not going to hit your PR because you've already convinced yourself you're not hitting that PR.
Yeah.
And that is so applicable to all things life, not just running or business, but you gotta believe before you can achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it is true. It's just part of, the mindset of having that, everyone says you focus on the positives, not the negatives, but there is, there's truth in that. You gotta, if you give yourself outs, if you give yourself this mindset that I don't know, I could do better, but I have all this stuff. I have a kid, I have the family stuff going on. I have this and this, and which may be true, but that doesn't mean you can't give 100% to the time that you have to train and then set a goal, attack and go after it for sure.
It's those controllables.
Yeah,
I think we are in control of more controllables than we want to believe that we are. And we allow these variables in our life to distract us from achieving our goals. And the reality is that only we have that ability to make the decision to control the controllables. Yeah. Again, going back to running, you see people all the time where you're getting closer to race day and people are monitoring the weather. Like, oh man, this wind, it was supposed to be 15 miles per hour. It's going to be 17 miles per hour. Or we're going to have some rain that we didn't expect. It's going to be a little bit more humid than we expected. Yeah. That weather is going to be there regardless. You cannot change that weather. So that's not a controllable that you can control. Go race your best race, but don't let that weather or those conditions hold you back from going out and putting forth this massive effort.
It's always interesting to me because when you're talking about the people on the bus, I was thinking about the weather part because no matter what, there is always, you will always hear something about the weather when it comes to race day. It could be 55 and sunny, but it's like, oh, there weren't enough trees at this part of the course, or there's, I swear, no, I don't know if I've ever done a race where, and I'm talking about myself too, given some excuse to be I don't know, there's a little bit of a headwind coming up that hill, and I feel like it's funny because we always default to thinking when we sign up for a race that the temperature is going to be perfect. We're going to get 48 degrees in November or April, and it never turns out like that. And I feel like it's interesting how we always think it's going to be that. And then part of that, I wonder, are we giving ourselves outs or excuses just starting out thinking this is going to be a perfect race day when we know it never is?
No. And when I go into a race or anything for that matter, my expectations of what I'm going to be experiencing that are external, I kind of just eliminate that. For me, it doesn't matter the weather, the temperature, how many runners, the course profile even. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to race my best race. Yeah. But I can promise you, though, when that race is done, whether I achieve the time I wanted or not, I'm not going to have this post-race recap that I'm posting on social media that identifies every reason that I didn't hit that PR. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah, I know. I feel you, man. Because it's we all have problems. Everyone has theirs. Things happen. Isn't that part of marathoning or race day or anything like that? Especially ultra marathoning, things go wrong. They're always go wrong. They're not meant to go right. It's a hard challenge, hard effort. Things are supposed to go wrong in some way. I mean, maybe other people have that magical day more often than I do. I think I've had it like one time where things are perfect, but I don't know.
Well, I think the reason we do these big preps and we have these training blocks and, whether that's like the consistency of building a business or your family or a race, that it prepares us to be problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to have the perfect conditions for everything, but we're building this resiliency through all the adaptation that we're gaining through the training to solve problems as we go. Like I remember when I was running the Buffalo, New York Marathon in 2022, I think it was like mile 21, 22. I had this full hamstring cramp that just seized up my entire leg. And I knew I was playing with like 90 seconds at that point to hit my goal.
Yeah.
And I screamed words out in front of women and children that I wish I would have never said. And I was so angry at myself. And I remember in my head in that moment thought, all right, I have a few more miles to get to the finish line. I'm just going to run through this. And if my hamstring rips off, I don't care. It's all worth it.
Yeah.
So it's just that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny you're saying about, kind of going through difficult things or overcoming problems, or I was thinking just in day-to-day life, it's like we create problems for ourselves that aren't really problems. When we think back, I was just like thinking back to how things were like, well, everything we do now is so easy that we create problems that aren't really problems, that I don't even know if they help us during training and things like that. And it's almost like we don't have to overcome things. And I feel like that matters in terms of like races or things like that. And I don't know if it's like a back in my day type thing. Like I was thinking today, because I have a flight this afternoon, I was thinking how easy it is just to check into a flight. You like get your digital boarding pass, you do all this stuff. And like, say like in 20 years ago, you had to like maybe call in, get your airplane tickets, like check in, like you weren't sure if like, you never knew if the flight was delayed. And it's kind of annoying and complicated, but in some ways I feel like that just the day-to-day life was more challenging, where you just had to like use your mind to like overcome obstacles, figure things out. And I don't know, in some ways, like it sounds crazy, but I almost miss that. I almost miss having to figure things out more in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think part of that is we were forced to be more engaged and present before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I remember when I first got my driver's license, and the first thing I did when I got my driver's license is me and my friends drove 3 hours to a White Castle cheeseburger spot because Harold and Kumar was like the really big popular movie.
Right.
And I remember getting ready to make this drive and going on MapQuest and printing out the directions.
Oh yeah, dude.
So the entire drive, we had to be fully engaged and present with the turn by turn and using the odometer to make sure we were not missing exits and all these things. But now you can just plug it into Waze or Google Maps and it guides you through it. And maybe your car even drives you on its own to get there.
Right.
So we have all this time to be distracted or find issues that aren't actually issues. Mm-hmm. I actually just recorded a podcast yesterday with Marcus Philly, and we were talking about stress in life and how to navigate stress. And I think this is applicable to what we're talking about. And he has like 2 steps he takes. One, first is having the awareness of recognize what he's feeling and what that stress is and what's causing it. And the second step is reframing the situation and like truly having perspective of, is this really a big deal? Are we making something bigger out of an issue than it really is? And is it because we have too much free time and we're too distracted from being actually present and engaged?
Yeah, that's interesting. Honestly, I feel like that a lot, because I feel like sometimes I'll catch myself getting stressed, and it's like, if you step back from it and actually look at it, it's really one of the dumbest things. It's just I feel like it's like I was saying, I feel like you almost create situations because it's so like things are so easy. You almost create these situations to get stressed out or worried about. And yeah, what was his, so let me ask you, and I'm going to listen to this podcast and everyone listening to should, but when he said about doing stress, when he said like, if you're in that moment and you're stressed out, like how did he kind of say to reframe that?
Well,
Like, did he,
the
sorry,
first is recognizing like, okay, I'm stressed. So having the awareness of I'm stressed, here's what I'm stressed about, like taking inventory of this is the way I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this way? Here's the situation that's going on. And then kind of reframing where it's like, okay, I'm stressed over this project.
Mm-hmm.
I guess here's another way to frame this. Sometimes when I'm overwhelmed or stressed out, I will take a step back and I'll take inventory of all these things that I'm overwhelmed by. And I'll actually like write them down sometimes. And there might be like 10 things that I write down.
Mm-hmm.
And then next to it, I put like when I need to have that done by, or like what's the due date. Okay. And oftentimes like 90% of the things on my list that I'm overwhelmed by, I don't have to have done or even engage with for another 2 to 4 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
The things that are in front of me that I can actually work on right now might be like 1 to 2 things. So I should be worried about 1 or 2 things, not all 10 that I feel overwhelmed by, because I'm now rushing and everything feels like it has to be done right now, when the reality is I might not even be able to start working on some of these things for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, that actually strikes a chord with me, because I feel like that's something I'm always constantly thinking about in my mind, like things that got to get done. What's this? And I'm thinking, you're right. Like a lot of stuff is like far out on the horizon, but it just occupies so much mental space that I honestly, I feel like I need it. And I've done that before where I have like kind of like thought about like, okay, what is like really important? And it's like, oh, you just got to tackle these things that are immediate. And then that helps definitely. But I feel like that is a good tip for honestly for myself.
Even like bringing it back to running, when I was running Rocky Raccoon a few years ago, which is a 100-miler down here in Texas, mm-hmm. I remember being at mile 80 and I couldn't think of anything but crossing the finish line. I was just thinking about finishing that race. And I caught myself in this moment, because you hear people say, run the mile you're in all the time, right? Like just be focused and present in the mile you're in. So I remember being at mile 80 thinking, one, I'm disrespecting this race. I'm disrespecting this experience. I'm not getting everything I want out of it because I'm not actually running the mile that I'm in. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking forward to the finish line. So I signed up for this race to experience 100 miles and what I was going to learn from that experience. I didn't sign up for this race and do this big prep just to cross the finish line. Yeah. So that message for me and that takeaway was like, be present. And it's a lot harder done than said. And I am by no means perfect at this. And I'm constantly reminding myself to do this, but run the mile you're in. And like, be one of the things I heard Jesse Itzler say once, be where your feet are. So if your feet are in a Wednesday morning tempo run in preparation for a marathon, just be focused and thinking about that workout, that one segment. If you are at home at dinner with your family cooking, like be there. If you're in your office in a meeting, be in that meeting, but be in the mile, run the mile you're in at the moment in time. Yeah. No, I love that. That's such a good advice, because it really is. And especially, you mentioned about the family. That's a big one for me, because I mean, you just had a kid recently, right? So our daughter turns 2 next month. And then my wife's pregnant right now. She's due with our second. We have a baby boy coming in August.
All right. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And you know how it is. It's like, I think I heard you talking about this on the podcast. Like when you always hear people say, oh, it goes fast, but like for real, it goes fast. Like it is, especially when they're younger like that, like the phases that they go through are like boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, they're already talking, walking, doing everything. They have their own independent personality. Like,
Yeah, two
it's
years,
wild.
like 2 years being a dad. I feel like she was just born,
Yeah.
first off. And the progression she's making now where she's putting like sentences together.
Hmm.
This morning after my morning run, after I got her up, she has like this doctor's kit, this fake doctor's kit, and she had like
Hmm.
a stethoscope and like a light, and she was looking into my ears, and she kept saying checkup, and she was looking at my
Uh-huh.
nose, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, how are you putting these things together?
She's like overtraining. That's what she. It's like your
Yeah,
Garmin, but she.
but you know what's funny? She loves like my watch and like playing with my watch and touching it. So I found like a kid's Garmin on Amazon this weekend,
Uh-huh.
and I got it for her. And it doesn't tell time; it just like tracks steps. But
Uh-huh.
it's like this little purple Garmin watch that now she wears. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Nice. So, do you have her on a step count yet?
We've been tracking it. She actually gets a lot of steps, a lot more than we thought she would get.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I can't wait for the day where I can actually train with my kids, whether it's like
Yeah.
going for a run or just like going on a
Mhm.
hike or playing sports in the backyard, but where we can actually engage and uh, live like an active lifestyle together.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty
Yeah.
excited about that.
I gotta tell you, that is one of my favorite things about what my relationship with my kids is that we do a lot of active stuff outside. So my kid, my 8-year-old, 7 at the time, he did same 5K we did back at Pomar in the fall, and that was like super awesome. We've been doing 5Ks for a couple years now, but we do a lot of trail running together, some trail races, and we'll be in Lake Tahoe and actually next weekend for a Solomon event. We're doing basically like a up a mountain and back down 11K, and it's like
Oh, nice.
we've been training for it, trying to do some big elevation hikes and stuff like that, and I'm like super stoked for it. And I gotta tell you, obviously you're going to be in that spot soon before you know it, and it's pretty awesome for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. Lately, as she's getting older, and especially down here in Texas, it's pretty hot right now. I'm just like I am so excited when she gets a little bit older, where we can start going camping and
Yeah.
hiking and exploring the outdoors. That's what
Yeah.
I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Dude, kids, if you get them out in the outdoors, it is just a playground, like a limitless playground almost. Because they can climb on everything, rocks, trees, creeks, look for snakes and salamanders, things like that. And it's endlessly amazing to them.
Well, that's how we grew up in Pennsylvania.
Right.
My mom would take us in the summer camping every weekend. And
Hmm.
there's campgrounds all over central
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
During the day, we go to creeks and we'd flip over rocks and catch crayfish and
Yeah.
salamanders and all the things.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. I mean, there's nothing better than catching crayfish, which is what we call them, I guess, up in PA. I know it's down south, they call them crawdads, but they're crayfish.
Yeah, yeah. It
So
was a great way to grow up.
oh yeah, it's the best because I grew up in the country. So I grew up back towards the mountains, like if you get back towards 81,
Yeah.
in Lower Dauphin Township. So
Okay.
I grew up out there. I still go home there. My parents have a farm back there. So it's crazy because right now I live in Baltimore City and we're like in the city. So it's a little, because my kids are surrounded by concrete and, pavement, I try to get them out into nature as much as I can, whether that's hiking or camping or running. And I feel like we struck a good balance, but yeah, it's definitely different from where we grew up.
No, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. So let me talk more about your kind of your. I want to explore a little bit about a hybrid athlete model because our core audience is mostly just runners, but I feel like you almost. I don't know if you're responsible for creating the hybrid athlete I don't know, persona or category or whatever, but I feel like you had a major hand in it, especially when it comes to lifting and running. So was that intentional that you entered into that space, or was it kind of just organic that it happened?
It was all organic. I
Okay.
can't take credit for like the hybrid athlete
Yeah.
because I now know there was a book written called The Hybrid Athlete years before I
Okay.
started talking about it.
Okay.
But I would like to think that the content we've created around the hybrid athlete model has definitely helped it grow
For
and
sure.
build awareness. So when I got out of the Army in 2017, I said I will never run a day in my life again. And I pretty much made a promise to myself. I was like, I'm done running because
Yeah.
the army just forced me to run.
Right.
And I just wanted to get big and strong. And that's what I did for a few months. I dedicated my life to just lifting a bunch of weights. I was deadlifting, squatting, bench pressing all the time. Me and my brother were eating as many calories as possible. And we got strong and we got big.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, I started missing running. I missed the not just physical challenge that running provided, but also the mental and emotional challenge and also clarity that running provided. So I signed up for the Austin Marathon in 2018. I did a half-assed prep for what I thought I could do.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up running the Austin Marathon in about 3 hours, 57 minutes. And it was just like a soup sandwich. Everything after mile 16 was just run, walk, cramp, run, walk,
Right.
cramp.
Right. Right.
Following year, I signed up for the Austin Marathon again, ran worse. It was 4 hours, 15 minutes. And during this time, my running was sporadic. I'd run a few miles here and there, but nothing crazy. I didn't do an actual prep. And after that is when I really started leaning more into endurance. And I signed up for my first Ironman triathlon, trained for that, did Ironman Florida down in Panama City. After that, I went on this journey of pursuing a sub 3 hour marathon, which I missed on my first attempt. I ran 3:24 at Austin, and I ended up running 2:56 a year after. And then, got faster and faster. My last marathon was CIM. It was 2 hours, 39 minutes.
Yeah. That's
This
crazy, dude.
past December, which
Seriously.
I was really proud of.
Yeah.
But in 2019, it was probably 2018, 2019, as I'm getting more into running and I'm getting, more serious about it after that second Austin Marathon, and as I was diving into some Ironman triathlon training, I started documenting all of my training on YouTube as I already was, but also releasing some training programs online. And I was writing training programs that incorporated both this foundation of strength training, which is a combination of strength, power, and hypertrophy, some bodybuilding style movements, some metcons, and then some running as well. And I want to name this program. And I vividly remember sitting in my kitchen with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and the house we were renting was downtown Austin. It was a half mile off of the Barton Springs area. Beautiful home, and loved this area, this neighborhood. And I remember writing this whole training program, going to launch up my website, thinking, what do I name this thing? And I was like, well, it's like a combination of these two modalities of training. It's running and lifting. It's a hybrid. We'll just call it like the hybrid athlete program.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, hey, I need a name for it. Let's just call it this thing. And no thought or intention really behind it.
Right.
And as I started documenting more of my training after that and sharing my love for strength training and bodybuilding, but also now this new love of running, incorporating more running into my programming and endurance training, the hybrid athlete just became this thing that I just identified with. And it slowly just gained popularity and more people were talking about it. And it was this slow build that just gained more traction and traction and traction. And then going into the pandemic and the lockdown, I think that's where it saw a massive growth spurt because gyms were closed down and all these people who were traditionally going to commercial corporate gyms now needed a new type of fitness, and running became their thing. And at the time I had a lot of running content on YouTube, especially being a bigger runner, that it all kind of just built into this thing organically over, a few year stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the same way for Believe in the Run, it was the pandemic really in a, obviously a bittersweet way, like kind of made our business grow by leaps and bounds because there was so much of a running surge that is still going to, like, I mean, it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as you probably noticed, and especially with you, where it has, maybe people who aren't traditionally runners, like you said, maybe they were maybe they were in the gym, the gyms were closed, or even now, like, I feel like gyms are open, but there's running is kind of just seeing a huge rise, and the trajectory keeps on going. So I feel like maybe those athletes who are lifting might be seeing their friends do it, or seeing it more in pop culture, or who knows, Instagram reels, and they're seeing more of an interest. So it kind of like a rising tide lifts all ships in a way.
Well, I was reading Steve Magnus's book, Do Hard Things.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he talks about in that book around running is that running is this one activity and discipline that requires individual toughness because you're fighting against yourself the entire time, where your mind and body is telling you to stop. You have to push through that resistance, and that builds this level of toughness. And it's this hard thing that gets easier over time through adaptation. But one of my assumptions is that the reason running is becoming so popular is because as the world gets more comfortable and softer, people need to actually choose to do hard things because we're not forced in our day-to-day to do hard things any longer.
Yeah. No, totally. I'm with you 100% on that. I feel like that is the one thing where I've been doing it long enough now where if I stop doing it, it feels like I'm just so, I don't know, lazy, just like this malaise comes over me where I'm like, I have to run, or like it just feels off. But I think you're right that a lot of people who are looking for, and then for something that's challenging and can kind of, I don't know, get them out of that maybe zone that they're in where it is things are easy. I feel like running especially is one of those things that's super accessible. It is true. You really only need a pair of shoes to get out the door. Of course, once you get into running, then it turns out that you need a pair of shoes, a hydration belt or vest, sunglasses, hat, everything else. So it ends up becoming quite a drain on the expenses. But in the beginning, all you need is a pair of shoes. And I think that's really accessible for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, running for me is one of those things, kind of like you said, if I don't wake up and run in the morning, my day doesn't feel like it's able to or has officially started. Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the days where I don't run, which are very, very few, very rare.
Yeah.
Something just feels off, and it truly does set the foundation for my day. That's why I like running in the morning compared to any other part of the day. Like, it sets the foundation for everything that I do, and my mindset and the clarity I have, the intention in which I kind of go forth and conquer that day. Mm-hmm. I almost now need to start every day with a run.
Yeah. Do you listen to anything while you run, or are you earbuds free?
I used to not listen to anything, but then when my daughter was born, I've tried to learn how to maximize my time. So now on my runs, I'm always either listening to an audiobook or a podcast. And I found now, like, I can finish an audiobook in 1 to 2 weeks sometimes, just on my morning run. So it's a great time to consume some really good content and then you can digest it while you're running and then apply it to your day.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I feel like I'm still a earbuds free person, but every once in a while, if there is something I'm trying to get a podcast out of the way or something like that, I think it's a good time. But yeah, I think it's good. I'm not a huge fan of listening to music on the run, but I feel like, yeah, there's, especially like you said, with kids, it is something where, if you're trying to knock out a book or something like that, it's definitely a good way to do that for sure.
It's also where I do all of my personal podcast prep too. So if I have a guest coming on, I'll listen to their material or the book. And then I'll be running on I run a lot of these backcountry Texas roads.
Yeah.
And right now it's, middle of June, the morning, it's already like 80, 85 degrees. I'm covered in sweat. Right. So I'll be trying to take notes in my phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to ask this podcast guest something. But my swipe up feature doesn't work because I'm so sweaty.
Yeah.
So I'm sure like people see me in these backcountry roads. It's like this guy who's just trying to swipe up his phone the whole time to write down this one note.
Man, yeah. Someday you could just speak into it and say, I need to take notes on this exact thing, and it'll transcribe it perfectly. But it's probably like 6 months away. So you have, you talked about your nutrition company, which is going strong. So Bear Performance Nutrition. Can you tell me more about that? Because that's a huge part of your business model and kind of, what you do. Obviously you use it yourself. Obviously a lot of your athletes use it. I listen to the Sally McRae podcast. You had her on, which by the way, she's one of my favorite people ever. And still to this day, one of my favorite podcast guests we've ever had. She has a new flavor. She's the best, but she has a new flavor, with some of your nutrition. So maybe kind of talk about that and what you offer, for athletes in the nutrition side.
Yes. The brand has evolved with me over time as my curiosity and training and nutrition and supplementation has also evolved over time as well. And that's where I spend all of my time building the company, with the team we have here at our HQ here right outside of Austin, Texas. So when I started the business in 2012, I was between my junior and senior year of college. And at this point in my life, I was really into bodybuilding, strength training. I was spending a lot of time in the gym. I was running a little bit because I was in the Army ROTC program. So we were forced to run. But outside of that, like I was in the gym. I was like a meathead. I loved the space. And at the time, the supplement industry was what I'd consider the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
All these companies were launching. All these products were getting pulled off the shelves because of banned substances. So I saw an opportunity where I thought, okay, I'm going to launch a business with products that I want to consume. Because at the time, I was already buying ingredients in bulk online and then mixing up my own product in my dorm room or my apartment.
Nice.
So like there were kids that would come to my dorm room and, they'd walk in, I'd have a food scale, white powders everywhere. I'd hand them a bag. It looked like I was dealing drugs.
They get a meth lab going on. You're cooking something here in the corner.
That's honestly what it looked like. And I was mixing up my own pre-workout supplements, and then I would sell them to friends for a few bucks. And they come, they get a baggie of pre-workout, and they give me a few bucks. And
that's awesome.
I loved the supplement space. I loved performance nutrition for the gym. So when we launched the company in 2012, we first launched with a pre-workout called Flight. Same flagship product we have today. The formula has evolved and changed over time. And then after that, we launched a branched chain amino acid product, creatine, whey protein. So those first couple of years were really focused on performance nutrition in the gym. And then in 2018, we launched a green superfood powder called Strong Greens, which at the time we thought we would just have as an option on our website, maybe use it as an upsell. We really created it because we wanted our own greens powder and that we wanted to use personally. So we took the time to formulate one that we were really proud of, that we personally wanted to use. And when we launched it on our website, it quickly became actually our best selling product.
Oh,
So this
wow.
told us, all right, we have like this opportunity to build more of a health and wellness line to our historical gym performance nutrition, strength focused nutrition.
Hmm.
And so for a few years, we built out the health and wellness category of BPN, strong greens, strong reds, a multivitamin, fish oil supplement, joint support supplement, collagen protein. And then when I started getting into endurance training in 2020, all the time I was spending on the bike for triathlon training for my Ironman, I was trying to find a carb and electrolyte powder that wasn't destroying my stomach.
Mm.
And all these products I was finding on the market were just maltodextrin based. And maltodextrin is a
Right.
very cheap carbohydrate source that can wreak havoc on the gut and the stomach over extended
Yeah.
periods of time. I do not enjoy maltodextrin. I know a lot of other endurance athletes don't as well.
Hmm.
So in 2020, I tested and tried dozens of carbohydrate sources and came across what is cluster dextrin. And now we use cluster dextrin in our endurance product called G1M Sport. So we created a carbohydrate and electrolyte powder to fuel endurance athletes.
Okay.
And as the endurance side of our business started to grow, we expanded that product offering. So now we have an endurance gel, which is our Go Gel. We just launched Sally's mango flavor of the Go Gel.
Right.
We
Right.
launched our electrolytes, our Go Bar. We're working on a new endurance like pre-workout shot right now. So there's 3 categories of products that we offer with BPN. One is your traditional strength performance nutrition supplements.
Hmm.
2 is your health and wellness supplements. And 3, which is a fast growing category for us, is our endurance products.
Okay. Awesome. Dude, we need to try that out. As far as like the gels and stuff, what's the difference in, say, if you separate like if you look at Goose or even Morton's, or I won't throw Spring under the bus anymore than they already have been. All those types of nutritions, how does yours separate from those?
So the goal with our Go Gel is we wanted to keep it a whole food, simple ingredient gel. So we don't use
Mm.
maltodextrin or anything like that. Like the apple cinnamon and the mixed berry flavor, for example, is a base of apple juice concentrate and apple puree.
Hmm.
24 grams of carbohydrates per gel, about 110 milligrams of sodium. Like Sally's gel, the mango one, is an actual
Yeah.
like mango puree and mango concentrate. So like
Nice.
whole food, simple ingredient, no preservatives. They're heat filled, so they are pasteurized when we fill them. So they have longer shelf lives, being a whole food ingredient gel. But
Okay.
our goal there was we wanted simple ingredients, something that wouldn't destroy your stomach while you were training, and that would
Hmm.
digest very quickly to fuel you for your endurance
Yeah.
and training demands.
So when you ran CIM, is that what you used for that race?
Yep. Yeah. I used the apple cinnamon Go Gels for that entire race.
Okay. What was your strategy like during the race or pre-race for using your nutrition?
Yeah. So I'd say that fueling is one of my competitive advantages because I just understand the importance of fueling. And I find so many endurance athletes don't fuel
Oh,
properly, and
for sure.
it wrecks their performance, and especially come race day. So I
Hmm.
always lock in nutrition, like dialed. So it was probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours before CIM, which is earlier than normal than I would start eating. But because we had to be at the bus station so early before the shuttle, before the race, CIM was unique. So it was probably 3 hours before the race started. I had a bagel with peanut butter, honey, and a banana,
Yeah.
as well as 2 scoops of G1M Sport. So a bunch of carbohydrates about 3
Yeah.
hours before. And then I had 2 scoops of electrolytes in a shaker bottle that I was sipping on the bus on the way there.
Uh-huh.
And then I had a Go bar as well. So Go bars are lightweight oat-based nutrition bar, 30 grams of carbohydrates per bar.
Nice. Uh-huh.
So that was pre race. And then I think I did every 4 miles. Yeah, 4, 8,
Okay.
12, 16, 20. I did a gel. And then I was
Okay.
just sipping on electrolytes on course.
Okay, cool. And so then that was every 4 miles for you was about 25 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less than that.
Yeah, I held a 6:05 pace at CIM.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
So that
then,
was my nutrition. My nutrition was dialed for that race.
yeah. No, it definitely sounds like it, because I think that's a lot of uh, people train with nutrition is one thing, but on race day when you're going, especially with the marathon, you usually only train up to 20 or 22. So when you have that extra 4 to 6, miles or 10K on the end, and especially when you're pushing the pace, that like nutrition needs are totally, totally different. And if you're waiting for, to 45 minutes every 5 or 6 miles, you're going to be in the deficit for sure.
Yeah, and I dial in that strategy for my big workouts too. So in a marathon prep, my speed work is always on Wednesdays. That rotates between track and tempo. So I will simulate my pre-race meal and strategy on those big workout days. Okay. And then when I have my big workouts on Saturdays that are like marathon paced workouts, the closer we get to the race, I will also replicate that pre-race nutrition strategy and just dial that in even more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone says nothing new on race day, and not even just nothing new, but it's definitely important to dial that in the best that you can. Obviously you're not running a marathon all out, but you can do enough during training to make sure that your stomach's going to be fine, you're feeling good, finishing workout strong, all those things. So yeah, that's cool to hear.
Yeah. I've trained with so many, I don't want to say so many. I've trained with some elite athletes and people who are much faster than me, who've been running much longer than me. And I'm always surprised by like the ignorance to fueling, where it's like, oh, I don't need to fuel for this workout. I don't need carbs. I don't need electrolytes. I'll save that for race day. And like your body doesn't become stronger by not fueling. It becomes stronger by fueling. And then not only your muscles and your performance and your endurance becomes calibrated to that fueling strategy, but also your gut. And that's the most important aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a big part. So you have to take a dump at mile 12. It's not going to be you're not going to get the time that you probably wanted.
Dude, when I first started training for my first sub 3 hour marathon, some of that volume and that intensity and those efforts were much larger than I ever did before. And my gut was like just not used to that type of intensity in those durations. And I was running off into the wood line or like people's backyards constantly. And I was so nervous for my first race, thinking like, holy crap, what happens if this hits me during a race?
Right. Yeah.
But my gut has just become calibrated over those years where it knows what to do and how to manage digestion and fuel and faster paces.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I feel you, man. I feel like probably fertilized too many places that weren't even meant to be fertilized over the years, but it's just part of it. But yeah, no, I feel like on race day though, it's like my body, I don't know how my mind knows, but that's the one blessing, I guess, from, I don't know, being in tune or out of tune, I'm not sure which, is that pre-race, it's like, we are good. I've never had like, it's all out there on the table or whatever. Hopefully not table. But it's, I feel like that's the one good thing. So I've never had that issue during race day. Had to stop and take a piss a couple times, but nothing too crazy.
My greatest fear for a race is that I can't go to the bathroom before a race starts.
Oh yeah.
And it's never happened to me, but I don't know what I would do if that couldn't happen.
Yeah, no, it's these. I feel like it's like you lose, like you feel lighter. It's just everything feels better. I don't
For
know.
sure. I mentally and physically.
Yeah, for absolutely, definitely.
Uh,
um, all right, man. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Maybe just I just want to do a couple wrap up questions for you,
yeah.
and I'll let you go on your way. All right, let's see. So, what's your favorite? Like, what's your go to running shoe, either on race day or just in training?
Uh, for the last couple of years, I've been wearing just for my daily trainer the Saucony Endorphin Speeds.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that. It's a good, nice choice.
right now, I'm wearing the threes. I tried the fours, and I was not a fan of the fours. I had the ones, the twos, the threes. So I'm actually now that they've released the fours, I'm finding places online to keep buying the threes.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that's my daily trainer. And then for race day, for the last couple of years, I've been wearing the Nike Vaporflies
hmm
and
Yeah.
love those. But for CIM, I wore the Saucony Endorphin Elites
Oh,
and
nice. Yeah.
really liked those. But I'd say like next marathon, I'll probably go back to Vaporflies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are all great choices. It's funny. I'm more of a fan of the Saucony Northern 4, but I guess it definitely, it's all subjective. So it just depends how you feel or how you like it. But in any case, Saucony Endorphin Speed series is like just a great shoe because, as you know, you can do tempo, you can do daily training. It pretty much handles everything you want to throw at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they've been my go-to shoe for years now.
Yeah. Is there any other piece of running equipment that you love that you feel like is super important for you or your training?
I'd say like, I mean, shorts, like I'm a big shorts guy and track tracksmith shorts. I love. I feel like I'm running
Yeah.
naked. I love them.
I was saying, I feel like mine are somewhere around here. Um, I'm the same way. It's like my favorite shorts.
And then I've been rocking a lot of Bandit stuff recently too, and I like
Mm.
Bandit's shorts.
Yeah.
Anything from Bandit or Tracksmith has been like my go-to running uh, gear and apparel. Even like Tracksmith running tights, I think are some of the best.
Oh, the Tracksmith Van Cortlandt, or is it Van Cortlandt tights? I think if I'm messing that up. Anyways, their tights are the best. Like, it's all I wear all winter long. I mean, I probably don't wash them enough to be honest. But yeah, they're amazing.
When I get back from my runs now here in Texas, I mean my shorts are like soaked through, soaked
Yeah,
through. Um, I literally I walk in the door, I rip them off, I put them right in the washer
yeah,
because they're just like they're sloshing everywhere.
yeah. It's gross. Well, as you know, even up here, right? It's actually been pretty nice the last couple months, but once it gets real hot in summer, it's super humid up here too. It's just so oppressive. But yeah, I don't even know how you do it in Texas because I mean, I've been to Texas plenty of times in August and I would just give up, I think.
It's toasty. It is toasty.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome talking to you. I think people are really going to like this podcast. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Eric Floberg for kind of making the connection. He's a super rad dude. I know you guys work together and stuff like that. So just want to fit that in there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually going to see Eric this weekend. We're launching our speed project film
Ah, oh,
tomorrow
yeah.
night.
Nice.
We're featuring it at a theater here in Austin, and Eric's flying in for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Man, that'll be fun. All right, give him a shout out or give him a what's up from me.
Now for sure, dude.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Nick. Hopefully we'll see you soon, maybe at a local 5K. Who knows?
Absolutely. No, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.